the glittering offices of Lagos's biggest corporation, Kora stood before three powerful managers, the same men who once used and discarded her. But today, she wasn't afraid. She had shocking evidence that would shake their entire world. How did a girl from Makoko rise from the slums to a corner office only to uncover a scandal that could destroy everything? The truth was darker than anyone imagined. In the heart of Lagos, where the air was thick with the smell of fried plantains and the rhythmic hum of hustling voices, Kora lived in a cramped one-room home with her mother and younger brother. The slums of Makoko were no place for dreams, but Kora had plenty of them. She had grown up watching her mother break her back selling akara by the roadside, all while whispering to Kora at night, "You are meant for more." From an early age, Kora stood out, not just for her smooth caramel skin and deep brown eyes that seemed to hold stories of their own, but for her sharp mind and quick tongue. She could bargain with market women like a seasoned trader, and she knew how to make even the harshest customer smile. Her beauty attracted attention, but it was her intelligence that left a lasting impression. Yet beauty and brains meant little in a world where wealth was power. Kora knew that if she wanted to escape the endless cycle of poverty, she had to climb higher than anyone from her neighborhood had dared to go. Every evening, she would sit on the roof of their makeshift home, staring at the glittering lights of Victoria Island, where skyscrapers stood tall like silent promises of success. Those lights became her obsession, a beacon calling her toward a future far removed from her childhood's rusted zinc roofs and muddy paths. Her big break came when she stumbled upon a job posting for a receptionist position at Apex Global, one of the biggest companies in Lagos. Kora had no formal connections, no polished resume, just a cheap blouse and a second-hand blazer she borrowed from a neighbor. But she walked into that interview with her head high, her smile disarming, and her confidence radiating like sunlight after rain. She impressed the panel not only with her appearance, but also with her quick thinking and natural charm. Within a week, Kora stepped into a glittering office building with spotless marble floors and glass walls that overlooked the bustling city she had once only dreamed of conquering. As she stood in the lobby, her reflection staring back at her in the polished glass, she promised herself that this was only the beginning. She wouldn't just settle for answering phones and directing visitors. No, Kora would climb until she reached the top floor. The office with the view. The corner office that belonged to people who owned power, not just borrowed it. But what Kora didn't know was that in the world of corporate success, beauty was both a gift and a curse. And the same charm that opened doors for her would soon attract the wrong kind of attention. The managers on those upper floors were watching her already, each with their plans, and soon Kora's ambition would become both her weapon and her weakness. Kora settled into her role at Apex Global faster than anyone expected. She wasn't just a receptionist, she became the pulse of the front office. She knew how to charm clients, calm angry callers, and even predict what each manager wanted before they asked. Her confidence, beauty, and sharp mind made her impossible to ignore. Within months, whispers about the girl from reception floated across departments. It wasn't long before the three most powerful managers noticed her. Mr. Aide, the sales director, was known for his easy smile and smooth charm. His compliments were honey-sweet, always laced with just enough suggestion to make Kora's skin crawl. But she laughed politely, telling herself it was harmless. After all, attention from a senior manager could be a career boost. Then there was Mr. Cheek, the operations manager. He ran the company's engine room with an iron fist. Employees feared his temper, but his results were unmatched. He noticed Kora's efficiency and invited her to observe high-level meetings, offering exposure and mentorship. But his compliments were different, less sweet, more transactional. "I could make your career if you make it worth my while." Finally, there was Mr. Femi, the quietest of the three, head of strategy. He was calculating, always watching. When he spoke, his words carried weight. He told Kora that women like her had two paths in the corporate world. Either you play the game, or the game plays you. At first, Kora basked in the attention. This was power, wasn't it? Being invited into rooms others only dreamed of. Being noticed by men who controlled promotions and bonuses. It felt intoxicating. But soon, the compliments turned into late-night calls. Invitations to discuss your future over dinner. Unspoken agreements. Favors that came with conditions Kora didn't fully understand until it was too late. She knew the gossip in the office, about other women who had risen fast and fallen even faster. But Kora told herself she was different, smarter, stronger. She could navigate this world without losing herself. But each favor chipped away at her boundaries. First, it was staying late to help with reports. Then it was dressing a certain way to impress clients. Soon, it was personal favors. Dinners where hands lingered too long, where her smile was her currency. Kora was no fool. She knew what was happening. But every time she considered walking away, she remembered the slums of Makoko. Success had a price, and Kora was willing to pay, until the cost became too high. Kora's rise had come at a cost, but she never realized how steep the price would be until the walls started closing in. Each of the three managers, like vultures circling a wounded prey, had found their way to tighten their grip on her life. Mr. Aid, the charmer, became her self-proclaimed protector. But his protection came with conditions. Every promotion Kora received was framed as his gift to her, a favor she had to repay with unquestioning loyalty. When she hesitated to attend one of his private business dinners, he reminded her of the raises, the bonuses, and the glowing recommendations he had written for her. "Without me, you're just another pretty face in the office," he said with a smile that made her stomach turn. Mr. Chaik, the ruthless, was even more brutal. He knew Kora's secrets, the things she confided in him during late-night strategy sessions, when she believed he truly cared about her ambitions. Now those secrets were weapons. He hinted that if she didn't comply with his advances or keep certain affairs quiet, he would destroy her reputation. One word from him, and her career would vanish. "Do you know how many girls like you I've seen come and go?" he sneered. "The difference is I can decide if you stay or if you disappear." Mr. Femi, the manipulator, played the long game. He never raised his voice or made direct threats. Instead, he planted doubt in her mind. He made her question her worth outside of their control. "You think your brains or beauty got you here?" he asked one afternoon, leaning back in his leather chair. "No, Kora. It's because we allowed it. You belong to this system now." His calm tone made it even more terrifying, like a spider quietly weaving its web around her. Kora's once unstoppable confidence began to crumble. At night, she stared at her reflection in her tiny apartment, wondering who the woman staring back was. She had dreamed of escaping poverty, of becoming a corporate powerhouse who could inspire girls from slums like hers. But now, she felt like a puppet, dancing to the tune of men who saw her as nothing more than a tool for their pleasure and power. The walls of her ambition began to suffocate her. Every meeting felt like a battlefield. Every compliment felt like a trap. Her work, once her pride, now felt like a performance she couldn't end without losing everything she had fought for. One evening, alone in the office, Kora broke down. Tears streamed down her face as the weight of her choices, The pressure of survival and the humiliation of her reality crashed down at once. She had played their game thinking she could outsmart them. But now she realized the game had played her. For the first time in years, Kora felt powerless, a feeling she swore she would never allow again. But in that moment of complete despair, something inside her sparked, a desire not just to survive, but to reclaim her power. The managers had underestimated her hunger for success, but they had completely missed her hunger for justice. Kora thought she had reached her lowest point until the day her mother collapsed back home in the slum. The stress of watching her daughter climb so high only to hear whispers of scandal and disgrace had taken its toll. With trembling hands, Kora paid the hospital bills, but as she sat by her mother's bedside, the words she had long forgotten returned to her. Kora, my daughter, beauty will open doors, but it is your dignity that will keep you standing inside. Her mother had repeated that phrase her whole life, warning her that the world would try to buy her, shape her, break her. But if she knew her worth, no price would be high enough to steal her soul. That night, sitting alone in the dim hospital corridor, Kora made a decision. She would no longer dance for crumbs at the feet of men who thought they owned her. She would reclaim her power, not just for herself, but for every girl who had ever been used, threatened, or told her dreams were too expensive. The very next morning, Kora became invisible, not literally, but in the way only a woman fed up with nonsense can. She stopped showing her fear. She smiled politely, spoke less, observed more, and began her quiet mission. Step 1. Gather evidence. Over months, Aura collected everything. Emails where they demanded private meetings, text messages that hinted at their favors for promotion schemes, even recorded conversations when the office was empty late at night. Every insult, every inappropriate touch, every threat, she documented it all. She dug through old records, finding hidden expenses, fake consultancy payments, and proof of company funds misused for personal indulgences. The more she found, the more she realized their corruption ran deeper than her own story. They had built an entire empire on silencing ambitious women, crushing dreams in exchange for fake promises. But gathering evidence was only half the battle. The real fight was within herself. Every time she wanted to quit, the whispers crept in. What if they ruin me before I expose them? What if no one believes me? What if I am just another girl who got lucky because of them? But then she remembered her first day at the firm, standing outside the glass building in a dress she had borrowed, dreaming of being a woman in control of her destiny. That girl still existed, and now she was armed with truth, the most dangerous weapon of all. Kora spent nights watching old videos of her mother telling folk tales, stories of women in the village who had fought for their honor even when the world mocked them. Those women were warriors. Kora was a warrior too. With a folder full of damning evidence, her mother's wisdom ringing in her ears, and her inner fire fully awake, Kora was ready. She would no longer beg for a seat at their table. She would flip the whole table over. The day Kora walked into the boardroom, silence fell like a thunderclap. Dressed in a sharp white suit, her hair in a sleek bun, she looked nothing like the timid girl they once manipulated. Her presence radiated power, the kind no man could buy or break. The entire executive team had gathered, including the 3 managers who once pulled her strings. Mr. Aide, ever the charmer, gave his usual smile, but his eyes flickered with unease. Mr. Chaik sat with arms folded, trying to intimidate her with silence. Mr. Femi leaned back, smirking, confident she was still the girl who could be controlled. They were dead wrong. Without a word, Kora opened a thick file and placed it on the table. Then came the flash drive. "Before I begin," she said calmly, "I suggest you all sit back and listen. Because by the time I'm done, you'll know exactly who you've been protecting. She started with emails, reading their exact words aloud. Compliments that turned into favors that became threats. Next came the voice recordings, clear as day, capturing their promises to fast-track her promotions in exchange for silence and submission. As her evidence piled up, the room grew colder. The once powerful managers squirmed in their seats, their faces turning from arrogance to panic. Kora didn't just have proof of sexual harassment. She had uncovered financial fraud, fake contracts, and funds they siphoned through bogus vendors. The board members' faces shifted from shock to disgust. One after the other by one, the managers tried to defend themselves. "She's lying! This is a misunderstanding. She wanted the promotions. We did her a favor." But the evidence spoke louder than their excuses. Kora ended her presentation with a single line. "You hired me because I was ambitious, but you forgot. Ambitious women fight back." Within hours, the story leaked to the media. News outlets ran headlines like, "Corporate Queen exposes corrupt power players. Justice for women in the workplace." Social media exploded with support. Young women called her a hero, professionals called her a game changer, and activists called her the voice they'd been waiting for. Kora became the face of courage and justice in Nigeria's corporate world. Companies scrambled to review their policies, and women across industries began sharing their own stories, inspired by her bravery. The 3 managers were fired, investigated, and blacklisted, their once glorious reputations shattered. Kora, on the other hand, became unstoppable, not because of revenge, but because she had finally reclaimed her power and dignity. She didn't just climb the ladder anymore, she was building her own. With the dust of the scandal settling, Kora knew her next chapter couldn't just be about survival. It had to be about change. She didn't want revenge to be her legacy. She wanted to rewrite the story for every girl who came after her. Using her savings, Kora launched her consulting firm, but this was no ordinary company. The foundation wasn't built on backdoor deals or whispered favors. It was built on ethics, talent, and equal opportunities for all. She wanted to create the workplace she had never known, a space where young women could thrive without fear. Her first hires were women from neighborhoods just like the one she grew up in. Brilliant minds who lacked polished accents or fancy degrees, but carried hunger, creativity, and raw talent. She didn't just give them jobs. She mentored them personally, teaching them how to negotiate salaries, set boundaries, and demand respect. Kora's office became more than a workplace. It was a sisterhood, a training ground where ambition was nurtured without compromise. She invited speakers, ran workshops on financial literacy, personal branding, and self-defense in corporate spaces. Every week, she gathered her team and reminded them, "Your worth is not a favor, it's a fact." Word of her revolutionary approach spread quickly. Companies who once saw her as a scandal now sought her advice on how to rebuild their broken corporate cultures. Government agencies invited her to speak on workplace safety. International platforms recognized her as a leader, reshaping Africa's corporate future. But her proudest moment came when she returned to her old neighborhood in Lagos. The same dusty streets where she once dreamed of escape now welcomed her back as a beacon of hope. Young girls gathered at community centers to hear her speak. Mothers who once warned their daughters about the dangers of ambition now said, "Be like Kora, fight for your dream, but never forget your worth." Kora understood something the managers never did. True power wasn't about control, it was about impact. And true success wasn't measured by titles or wealth, but by how many others you lift as you climb. Her transformation was complete. but her journey was just beginning. She had gone from being exploited to becoming a force of change. And in doing so, she redefined not only her success, but the meaning of corporate power in Nigeria. In the end, Kora didn't just rebuild her career, she built a legacy. In the heart of Lagos, Kora's story became more than corporate gossip. It became a modern legend. From boardrooms to street corners, her name carried weight, not just as a woman who rose from nothing, but as the woman who fought for dignity in a world that tried to strip it away. Elders shared her tale to young girls, mothers whispered it to daughters, and ambitious women held her story close to their hearts like a secret weapon. Kora's journey wasn't about revenge or riches, but about reclaiming power the right way with wisdom, courage, and unshakable self-respect. Her legacy stood as a reminder that true success isn't wealth or titles alone. It's having power without losing your soul. Kora didn't just climb the ladder, she rebuilt it, ensuring the next generation wouldn't have to choose between success and dignity. And so, in Lagos, a city where dreams are born every day, Kora became a name that meant one thing: rise, but never bow. Share your thoughts and lessons from this story in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.